Welcome to Agent Blue, your comic book explosion podcast. I'm George Green.
I'm Michael Bonanno III, and today we're going over character arcs.
Oh yeah, just make it sound any more boring than it is. Today we're gonna go over character arcs. I sound a little bit more enthused over it. Um, yeah, I thought because the movie's coming out 2 days, you know, we gotta get this out and we gotta get these story arcs done. And I figured this would be the best way to roll right into the movie is to just kind of recap some story arcs and some character development throughout the 11 years of the MCU.
I mean, we've got so much to go over, so many
Well,
everything.
I can make this easy. We can skip over Captain Marvel,
I mean, she's only got one movie and one appearance to date.
and um, really, I guess we can skip over like Wasp and whatnot, but we can't skip over Ant-Man and the Wasp.
So we're mainly just gonna focus on Ant-Man for that.
Yeah. And then I guess we can talk about Black Widow, um, Hawkeye. I guess we could touch upon um, Nick Fury, but there's not a whole lot to go off of for there as well.
His character arc is he loves cats, meets a flurkin, has his eye scratched out, and then becomes director of S.H.I.E.L.D.
I mean, we can really just focus on the original six: Iron Man, Captain America, Hulk, Thor, um, Black Widow, Hawkeye.
I mean, those are the people we're gonna see in the at least first 30 minutes of the movie
Well, then that's what we're going to start with first. We'll start with Iron Man
because he had the
because
first movie.
he had the first movie. So, um, Iron Man's story arc. I feel like since he was the forefront of the MCU, his is the most important.
He is going to be the one that has been shoved into the role for EndGame as hero. So, yeah, I'd say he is most important. What I
As
mean by
far
what I mean by that is the fact that he and Thanos are so similar.
right, they are almost the same. They're very close in similarities. Because we have Thor. He is a futurist. Thor. Iron Man. I'm gonna do this again, aren't I?
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna say the wrong name every time. Iron Man is a futurist, and so is Thanos. They
Mm-hmm.
both have that vision for the future, that foresight to kind of have a plan for everything. So, in that sense, I feel like Iron Man could have gone down a similar path to Thanos.
Could have. If
Um,
if he hadn't been blown up by one of his own rockets.
right? I mean, we see him in the first movie. He's arrogant. He's not too much in the hero role. He's only doing Iron Man to kind of protect himself and his own interest.
Mm-hmm. And
And
then
it's
gets immediately shoved into the Avengers initiative.
yep by Nick Fury, and he's just uh, Iron Man 2 is, you can see a little bit more of the hero coming out in Tony Stark, but still not so much.
I mean, he
The only
gets
reason
super
he's the
drunk.
hero, yeah, the only reason he's in that hero role is because he was forced into it by everybody else. These people are trying to slander his name, and he's really only protecting himself, but they're putting other people in harm's way.
Mm-hmm.
He really does nothing to try to help those people that Whiplash had hurt. He was just trying to fight him. Um, His next appearance would be the Avengers. That's where he really kind of steps up into his hero role as like the protector of Earth. Uh,
His first real selfless act, because
right, and he
he
says,
jumped
"We're
straight
the Avengers."
into it. He
You
jumped
know,
straight into flying into outer space with that thing, with the nuke.
but then in Iron Man 3, you see the repercussions of that.
Yeah,
You see
horrible,
him
horrible,
crippling anxiety
horrible
and
PTSD.
PTSD just out the wazoo. So that kind of pushes him um, like towards the edge, which brings us to Age of Ultron, where he creates Ultron out of
Ultron.
the Mind Stone, and you have a superbot that's a genocidal maniac. He just wants to kill every human on Earth.
The best way to protect everybody is to kill everybody.
You know, and since that was a part of um, like Tony, like they put like a bit of Tony in Ultron, you can kind of see the similarities between Ultron and Thanos.
Well, I mean, they both were trying to wipe out the Earth.
You know, so um, but then you see Tony kind of redeem himself with the creation of Vision, but it was still like it could have been a problem
It
in
could have
itself.
easily been a problem. That's why
I
everybody was
mean, it
like,
wasn't.
no, 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 no. And Thor comes out of nowhere like, bop, here's
Yes.
Vision.
Um,
I
Civil
have
War.
decided 100%. I am the
Yeah,
only one that matters here. But we'll get to
that
Thor
was the
later.
very first step of King Thor. He was like, "I'm gonna do this because I know this is probably gonna be the right thing to do." That was his first step towards kingdomhood. Technically speaking, we'll get to this later, so just remind me. But Thor technically is already King Thor. But when we get to Thor, we'll get there. Civil War. You see Tony Stark's extra hard push into his hero role. This is where he decides to take a stand in the Sokovia Accords to side with the government, even though throughout the most of his solo movies he was against the government.
100%.
So
But he's just
with
trying,
this
he's
role,
doing the extreme to do the most good.
right? He
In
thinks in
his
his mind
mind.
that going with the uh, government was the right thing. And you see Rhodey takes a side too, and everyone's very split on that. But still, towards the end, he still leans towards Captain America's side. He doesn't bring Cap in. He doesn't tell on Cap. Like at the end, even though they had that big fight, he's just like, yeah, I'm just gonna leave it alone.
Yeah, he gets
'Cause he
the
knows
cell
Cap's not
phone and
wrong.
that's it.
He knows Cap's not wrong. He knows they're on different sides.
He knows Cap's not wrong, but he also thinks he himself is right.
Right. Which then brings us to Spider-Man: Homecoming, where you really see him reprise his like hero role. Bringing up the next generation of superhero. He takes that like
Gets
I
shoved
guess you could
into a
call
surrogate father type of.
right, and he doesn't do a bad job, but he could do a little bit better. He's not perfect.
You know,
Um,
we look at Spider-Man: Homecoming, and we watch it, right, and we're just like, yeah, Spider-Man, do that thing right there. Just continue, go through whatever. But then, like, if you really think about it, like Tony actually has the whole thing covered. Like he knows what he's doing. He's taken everything that Peter has said into consideration and had, everybody in the right place to take the vulture down. And he's just being a little kid.
but
He's
he,
just
he
being a
could
kid.
he could have said something.
He
Like he
could
could have
have,
made
but
a
like,
mention.
how many times do parents tell us exactly what's going on when it's going on?
Well, it's not his parent, and B, Spider-Man, Peter Parker is a superhero. He's got superpowers.
Yes, so
You don't have superpowers.
you don't know that.
No. Ooh. Um,
Don't you remember throwing me into concrete wall? I still don't feel that.
And now moving on to Infinity War. Um, you kind of see this same Spider-Man Homecoming Tony Stark as you see. Um, he still has that like protector role, but then he's still reluctant to call Cap. He's still reluctant to do what needs to be done. He was trying to
He's
solve
not
this
just
all himself.
reluctant, he just straight up doesn't do it. Bruce is the one who calls him.
Well, he doesn't get a chance to actually call him. If you kind of see it, like he just waits.
He drops the phone.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. You're right.
He could have called him at any point. He could have called him at the moment he brought it up when he pulled out the phone. He could have done it right before he ended up in outer space. He could have done it at any point. But Banner's the one who called.
That's true. Speaking of Banner, that brings us right into the Hulk. Technically
Before we
speaking,
do that real quick, I guarantee at this point, because of what's just happened in Infinity War, Iron Man, Tony Stark, is regretting so bad siding with the government in Civil War because he probably could think of a bunch of ways that if they were on the same team that he and Cap could have come up with a plan to stop this whole thing from happening.
yeah, they could have. I don't think he's regretting it. I just think he is just trying to move forward. You know.
Yeah, I understand he's trying to move forward, but like, dang it, if only I had joined, if only I was with Cap.
So onto the Hulk. Um, the 2008 Hulk movie, The Incredible Hulk, technically is a part of the MCU.
Yep, Edward Norton.
So we can consider that as canon, considering General Ross is brought over into Civil War like 9 years later. Not really 8, but close enough. This Hulk doesn't really have much of a character arc up until we get into I say Age of Ultron is where you see the biggest difference between Hulk and like in his story progression.
Yeah, the biggest thing.
Because the first time we technically thought we saw Hulk was the first Avenger. Um, so when you move into Age of Ultron, that beginning scene where Hulk's already with the team, he seems to have a bit of self control. He's not so wild. Um, there even Black Widow's able to talk him down from being the Hulk. So it's like your first noticeable like change in the Hulk is change towards being a more like Professor Hulk, a more usable instead of so savage.
Yeah.
But also then we see what happens when he gets his mind played with by Scarlet Witch and just goes nuts in the city.
Yeah. Pretty sure he saw Infinity War. I'll
Um,
say that every time.
you do say that every time. You know, they could do. I hope they do some sort of like sense of like what the Hulk maybe saw if this theory is true, where Scarlet Witch was showing everybody visions of the future instead of just visions. But we'll have to see that, where it stands.
Well, I
And
mean,
then
those visions caused Thor to create Vision.
this is true. This is true. So there is some truth to him,
You
and
know,
Thor was probably the one
if
searching him out. The Mind Stone was warning everybody.
if Wanda didn't give everybody visions, she would have never fallen in love with Vision.
This is true. This is true. Um, so moving on, we don't see the Hulk again until Thor Ragnarok, where he is the gladiator.
The
He's the
real
champion.
protagonist of this movie.
Yeah, for real. He's a champion. He's a lot smarter. He's been the Hulk for some time, so the Hulk has had time to
He is
um,
now like a 5-year-old child.
develop. Yeah. Um, and he's like a child, but he has this like sense of empowerment because he's the champion. You know, he gets all these special privileges and whatnot. He's comfortable there. This is a an area where the Hulk can kind of flourish. Um, and that's also where you see like kind of a new relationship between Banner and the Hulk
It's
because Banner
also,
doesn't really turn into the Hulk because he doesn't want to get stuck.
yeah, that's his biggest fear.
But then at this point, you know, this is the first time you really see uh, Bruce Banner has to die in order to become the Hulk in Thor
Mm-hmm.
Ragnarok. Like, he had to legit like almost kill himself.
Was the first, not almost, he 100% did. He just splat. He splat.
He splatted, but he didn't die because obviously the Hulk came out.
Oh, he died. Hulk just resurrected him. And it's the first time we see it occur, but it's not the first time it happened.
If you're talking about the deleted scene where
No, I'm not talking about a deleted scene. I'm talking about in Avengers when they're all talking. He says, "I tried to put a bullet in my head once, and the other guy spit it out." He killed himself. The Hulk just made sure he didn't die.
yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. But it's the first time you see it.
Yeah.
You know, the first time you physically see he has to die, and the Hulk just kind of resurrects him. Um, we don't see the Hulk in Infinity War. We see the relationship between him
Well,
and
we
Bruce
kind of
Banner.
do.
You see him get beat up in the first 30 seconds of the film. You know, they just want to show how strong Thanos is, but um, he's just the whole time is arguing with Bruce Banner about not coming out. That's why I feel like the next incantation of the Hulk is going to be the Professor Hulk, because Bruce is going to find a way to
Bill
turn.
Bixby, that stuff.
Mhm, exactly. Next in order of appearance would then bring us to Iron Man 2, which is Black Widow.
Okay, Black Widow, Black Widow. I feel like she's got some. Okay, here we go.
Okay, Black Widow, Black Widow. You see her in Iron Man 2. She's just a super spy. Um,
Always just a super spy until
just a super spy. The
she makes
Avengers, you kind
friends.
of see her relationship with Clint Barton kind of brings like
A little
more of a sense
humanity.
to her character. Like, yeah, a little bit more humanity instead of just the spy, heartless, whatnot. Um, Moving on to the Winter Soldiers, where you see a huge development in her character, where she is helping Captain America, and you can see that she actually cares, at least somewhat.
She stops being so much of just a heartless spy and starts being like a good friend spy.
Yeah, even though in the beginning of the movie she was, you know, on the same mission with him and stealing secrets, but um,
Well, spies do bad stuff too. Like,
right, I guess you're right. Uh, she's in Age of
and
Ultron,
and I
still.
mean to you want to think about it, she wasn't originally on the side of the Americans.
This is true. She was a Soviet spy. Um, Age of Ultron, you kind of see her character really develop as like a love interest for Bruce Banner.
Out of
Um,
nowhere.
Out of nowhere, yeah, this is like some serious character development. What really kind of baffles me is did they only do that story to bring more humanity to Black Widow's character? Because
Or
if you
did they
notice,
do it to bring more humanity to the Hulk?
but
I mean, they could have just brought his girlfriend back. They could have. And there's been talks to bringing the actress back to play Betty. But right now she's playing Karen.
Yeah, but then you see that Hulk has another love interest in Valkyrie, and if they go up the Professor Hulk route,
I
he might
don't
need a
think
little Valkyrie. No?
they didn't look like romance. They looked like brother and sister.
Maybe, I don't know. We'll see. Because you've seen
Valkyrie
Bruce kind
apparent
of fancy
according to the
Valkyrie.
posters, Valkyrie's been dusted.
She's not been dusted.
According to the posters,
No, Cherie's been dusted according to the poster. Not Valkyrie. What posters are you seeing?
Avenge the Fallen. Continue.
She was in a trailer. I'm just saying, she was in a trailer. None of the
Just
dusted have been in a trailer.
just because she's in the trailer doesn't mean she wasn't dusted. They could have just brought her back first. She could be an LMD.
Valkyrie comes back first.
She's an
So let's
LMD.
see. She Age of Ultron, Civil War. She really takes a side with the government here in Civil War, with Tony Stark.
Well,
But
she has real no choice.
at the end of the movie, she just kind of uh, helps um,
Steve.
Captain Steve Rogers. Yeah.
What
And
else is she gonna do? They are friends.
they're friends. And then you see her as she was kind of a rogue in Infinity War. She changes her hairstyle to help disguise herself. And she's on the side of Cap and Falcon, and they just kind of go in and do their thing. She's also on the front lines of the Battle of Wakanda. So she's, at least she's still willing to defend the Earth.
Well, I mean, I feel like anybody at this point, like whether good or bad, would be trying to work together for Infinity War. But okay.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you don't see any of the bad guys from any of the movies coming out to help.
Well, how many of them are still alive?
None.
That's what I thought.
Okay, now we're on to the best Thor. Duh.
That's
He wasn't.
subjective.
That's subjective to me and everybody else around me, including you. Um,
No. Captain America's the best movie superhero, and Spider-Man's just best. Period. End of story. For me.
sure. Let's just keep moving. We're not gonna argue about this today. Um, so we see Thor in his first movie. Um, he's very young. He's
Arrogant.
very arrogant.
Very bratty. He's an EK, entitled kid.
He's very bratty. He kind of does his own thing and doesn't notice the consequences. Um, and he plays a bigger role in the Avengers, as in around all these mortals, because everyone's calling Thor a god. He's
Even though
just
he's an alien.
he's just tops, man. He's got this. He's walking around. He's cocky. Um,
I think he's always cocky. No matter how much he grows, he's still that a little bit cocky.
yeah, that's true. Um, he says that like I'm gonna be a king attitude, which is with his cockiness, but he's the only one worthy of Mjolnir, which also could help.
I mean, I've said this last time, not in the podcast, last time we tried to record this episode. Or was it the other podcast? The hammer being Mjolnir, having the inscription saying, "He who is worthy to wield this hammer will gain the power of Thor." But Thor is the only one worthy to wield it, and I mean, it's
I
kind of
mean,
foreshadowing the fact that he's going to be able to use his lightning and thunder abilities without that hammer.
um, yeah, I get that. They definitely could have explored the hammer in more of a sense because it is a very mystical weapon, and its properties are interesting. But with the Chris Hemsworth willing to take the role of Thor as far as he can. I don't
He's
think
coming
they
back.
need the option for uh, the hammer to be around to create another Thor. Like, they don't need that because they have Chris Hemsworth is just going to stay for a while. So getting rid of it was just to grow the Thor character.
Yeah, to show what he can be.
Mm-hmm.
Even though if we
Um,
want to talk about what happens in the comics, he's just turns into Donald Blake in the beginning. But
so go ahead.
his character development goes from this cranky little entitled brat to becoming a little bit more wise. Um, and it doesn't really change. His character really doesn't change drastically until the third Thor movie, with the added of
No, I think his initial change happens um, in the Age of Ultron, where he sees the Vision, and he's like, "Something's wrong. I got to go find out." And he goes on a quest for the stone.
yeah.
That is where
That
he
is where the change happened, but I'm saying like you
changed
don't really see the effects of that change until
until I
Ragnarok.
get, I uh,
When Taika Waititi comes in with let's make everybody funny.
everybody's awesome. So into Thor Ragnarok, you see that Thor has seen uh, the end of Asgard, the
Mhm.
end of its people. This is all foreshadowing, and we all think it was for Ragnarok, but then we all realize that it was for um, Infinity War and Endgame. But
Yeah.
but you really see his character develop. This is where you see him lose Hammer. He loses his father, and then he becomes greatly powerful. Like before, he was never this strong.
Yeah.
You know, and I like to make the comparison between the character Gore and
Hella.
Hela because the way that their powers kind of work the same. Um, in the comics, Gore wanted to kill all gods, and I mean Hela only wanted to kill the Asgardians.
Asgard.
But technically speaking, that similarity can be made.
She
Um,
is the god of death.
right. She plays her same role in the comics as well.
Yeah.
But then you see in the continuation of that comic book with Gore, it moves forward into time where you see a King Thor and he has no arm. Well, he has an arm, but it's metal, and then he
He has a
has
Winter
one
Soldier arm. He has a Nick
eye.
Fury eye.
Right. So we see in Thor Ragnarok that Thor does lose his eye.
He gains the eye patch, but then he also gains a new eye in Infinity War.
Right. And then he's gonna lose it again. No.
He's gonna rip it
So then we
out.
see him pull more into like his God of Thunder esque stature, where he has more control, not more control, but uh, he doesn't need his hammer to summon the powers of the lightning anymore,
Yeah.
and you see him whoop some booty with it, bringing us into Infinity War and pretty much the half of the decimation of his people. You know,
Yeah. Watching them all burn. But then we could also foreshadow the fact that we might get Asgard on Earth now that, there's only a quarter of Asgard left.
right after everyone's just been decimated.
Yeah. And,
You
Norway.
would think that Thanos would take into account that he just killed half of the Asgardians.
It's funny, like, half of the people died in the war against Hela. Then you get more people dying at the hands of Thanos physically, And then he snaps out of existence a half of the people still alive from the people he didn't physically kill and the people who
You
weren't
know
already dead.
what they could do? They could potentially not undo the snap and just get some heroes back, but use the recreation of Asgard on Earth as like a haven for aliens that have nowhere left to go.
So instead of being New Asgard, it's just. I mean, it's technically New Asgard, but like, instead of it just be Asgardians, we get like a Better Ray Bill type. We get a Drax
Well,
type. We get
yeah,
a.
if you think about it,
And I'm saying type because we're not gonna get. Well, we could get Better Ray Bill, but we're not gonna get Drax. We're not gonna get a Gamora type,
at
especially
the,
not after Gamora died.
at the end of the God Bomb storyline, uh, King Thor of the future, his Asgard is void of almost all Asgardians, and it's just a safe haven for the universe. Really, a lot of there's some Asgardians, there's aliens that have no planets to go back to. It's a pool of people. It's kind of like the Genosis for the mutants.
Genosha.
Genosha. Sorry, I was looking at the Star Wars poster when I said Genosis.
Okay.
um,
Different universe.
Same franchise though. Disney still owns them.
Different franchise, different universe, same company.
No, same franchise. I refuse to believe that Star Wars is not just the future of the MCU. It's fine. You'll get it. You'll get it in a couple of years.
No. Star Wars is the past of the MCU, bro. A long time ago in a galaxy far away.
Yeah,
I want
but
to
in
see a
galaxy
Jedi. I
far
do.
away,
I would love to see a Jedi appear in the MCU, but that's not what we're talking about.
it could happen.
They are a Marvel comic, but
So on to the next one. In Thor, we see our first appearance of Hawkeye, Clint Barton.
yep,
He's really not in the movie all that much to make so much assumptions out of. And the first time we really see him is in the Avengers, and he's mind controlled for more than half of it.
yep. Yeah, he hated that. Jeremy Renner, that's the name.
But he played the villain. He made a pretty good villain, just playing the lackey.
He played a pretty good henchman.
He did some damage. He was able to really do some damage. So moving on to Age of Ultron, where he really comes into his role, where you really get to see him. He's a lot funnier. He makes a comment about having a bow and arrow, fighting robots. He doesn't really know what's going on.
And he aims his bow and arrow at Quicksilver and says nobody would know. First off, if you have an arrow sticking out of your chest, who is the first person they're gonna go to in the Marvel universe?
What if he pulls the arrow out?
You still got literal an arrow straight through the chest. Like it's not a bullet size. It looks like an arrowhead. But not the point. That was also not even supposed to be in the movie, but it was just such a great ad lib.
Moving on to Civil War. Well, actually, no. Age of Ultron. You see, that Clint Barton's a family man. He has a family. It brings a very humble spot to him. He's just kind of doing this. This is his job, but he's got a family at home to protect.
Yep.
And Nick Fury even mentions that his deal was to protect his family at all costs. So we move into Civil War, and he really only gets involved because Cap calls him.
Well, he has great respect for Captain America.
So, he really just joined that side of the team. He fought Black Widow, and they were just sparring the entire time. Like, if you notice, they only really fought each other
They didn't really fight at all. They were
They
like,
didn't really
"So are
fight.
we still friends?" And
Yeah,
it depends on
and
how
then Hawkeye
bad,
would just
how hard you hit me.
shoot a couple of arrows every few minutes at somebody else to make it look like he's doing something. But he would shoot an arrow at at War Machine, something that wouldn't even hurt him. He wouldn't even use the bow. He would just take it and just throw it like a grenade, just get him close. Um,
The only real time he did any damage with that bow in Civil War was they did that classic scene and
with Ant Man.
with Ant Man, and it wasn't even
Yeah.
like his arrow doing the damage. It was just like damage to his costume by an Ant Man.
Um, so then we move on to oh, nothing. He wasn't in Infinity War because he was arrested at home.
Yep.
And, like so,
Same with
you don't really
Scott.
see much of it. So moving down to your favorite, good old Captain America.
Yep. Caps. Uh, what is it called? Character development is a. I wanted to say a weird one, but it's really not weird. If you watch what's happened to him, you could really tell why all of it happens. Like, he starts off as that, starry-eyed kid who just wants to, save the world and fight the good fight. And even when somebody, like, tells him, like, the darkest thing that could possibly happen, he's still like, nope, I still want to enlist. And he does. He even jumps on a grenade that nobody knows whether or not it's a dud to protect everybody else. He could have blown himself up.
Yeah,
That's who he was in the beginning. That's who he was in 1945.
and then as the story progresses, you slowly see him reprise his role of captain. He holds himself up to like, oh, I'm a captain, and you really see that moving on from Captain America into the Avengers.
Mm-hmm.
Even though Tony Stark, Iron Man, is kind of like the leader of the Avengers, he still takes that leadership kind of role and helps plan and whatnot.
I don't care if Tony Stark is funding the Avengers or whatnot. Captain America is the leader, and that's the end of the story. Like, I understand that Tony is technically the leader, but there is no way in anywhere that Captain America is not the leader. I mean, you see it the most in the very beginning of Civil War and in Avengers 1, just how much of a captain he is. The reason why I say in Civil War is because of how that tactical team was going in Sokovia.
Oh yeah,
Like how it was going on. Not Sokovia. Was it Sokovia? It was somewhere.
it was. I thought it was some African country.
It was somewhere. But like the way that how tactical the team was because of the way Cap was.
Uh, well, moving on from there, we can go right into Winter Soldier, uh, and you see, he's a little bit more used to uh, being on, like in our timeline now, being in the future. Uh, he's still not getting out much. He doesn't have a girlfriend or nothing. He's still playing his war role. Taking missions and just filling his time up with just mission upon
He's
mission
never
upon mission.
not. No matter what, he's always in that war role. To him, he's always in war.
Um,
I feel like it's the only reason he doesn't have PTSD is because he's not done with the war.
this is true. So you see,
The second
when
he is, he's gonna be dead.
as soon as he does kind of try to make an attempt to get back into normal life, try to like talk to a female, it hits the fan again. Nick Fury's in his apartment. Winter Soldier tries to assassinate Nick Fury, and Cap is right back into war again.
Yeah.
Moving on to Age of Ultron. Um, this is where you really start to see the butting of heads between Captain America
And
and
Tony.
Tony Stark. At the end of the movie, you see that Tony Stark kind of takes his step down from the leader of the Avengers, hands the team over to Captain America, knowing that he's a better leader for the team. Because Tony Stark has a hard time with those decisions.
Yeah.
So he decides to go at it on his own. You see, obviously, how well that lasts right into Civil War. Tony Stark's got the suit back on.
Mm-hmm.
But like you had said, you see that Captain America's form of the Avengers is much. I don't want to say much neater because of what Wanda did, but it wasn't part of the plan. I guess everything went
Wanda was
smooth.
just trying to get the gas out and make sure he didn't blow up Cap.
Right.
It just,
Uh,
she couldn't hold it for too much longer. She was trying to get him as high as possible.
It's not like she did it on purpose. I'm not saying that. But that put in the motion of the Sokovia Accords and the whole Civil War thing happened. And it's really just Captain America trying to protect Bucky the entire movie. And then he's trying to go after Baron Zemo at the end. And Iron Man's trying to stop him. And it's just a whole bunch of nonsense. But
Yeah, that's how his story plays out. But he goes from this guy who's like all about like protecting the U.S. and its interests, and then realizing just how bad the U.S. government can be, and then completely giving up the name of Captain America and becoming the version of him that we know from the comics, Nomad, even though he's not been referred to as Nomad at all.
right. Um, so with my idea of the original six, actually Captain America is the end.
Yeah, Captain America is the end, and that would leave us at
45 minutes almost.
42 minutes at the moment. Yeah, it's 42 minutes. Not 43.
Instead of an hour and 18.
Yeah.
I told you we were going to fly through that one.
Oh well.
Is there anything else you want to add? We can talk about Thanos, actually. We can add some time onto it. I got a couple new comparisons and a couple new notes.
All right, give us your Thanos.
All right. So, with the original six Avengers leading us into Endgame, I figured that we could get a little bit of a discussion on Thanos as well, because he's also kind of he's kind of a main character, especially in Infinity War. He had the screen time, but if you look throughout, he's appeared in every major Marvel movie.
He's had a role, even if he's not appeared. Even if
He's
you
had a
don't
role.
see his grimace-looking face.
Right. I mean, you see him. His role is in Avengers. He sends Loki to get the Tesseract with the Mind Stone. Um, he doesn't really make an appearance in Winter Soldier, but in Guardians of the Galaxy, has Ronan collect a Power Stone for him. And Age of Ultron is, I believe, the one where he finally puts his gauntlet on.
Yeah, I think Winter Soldier was definitely one of those movies that was. It's in the universe, but it's like the least connected.
Right. And then we move into Guardians 2. He doesn't make much of a scene. He's kind of quiet up until Thor Ragnarok, where he makes his final appearance, and then Infinity War, where he's pretty much the main character of the movie.
Tony and Thanos are the main characters in that movie.
So, talking about Thanos, that brings me into the question of how bad of a guy is Thanos.
How bad of a guy is he?
How bad of a guy is Thanos? Yes, he's a bad guy.
Well, that's moral relativity.
But like when you think about it, he does keep true to his word. So in Infinity War, the beginning of the movie, he's gonna kill Thor if Loki doesn't give him the Tesseract.
Yeah.
You know, and he doesn't kill Thor when Loki gives him the Tesseract. He lets Thor go.
Yeah, but what I meant by it's more relativity, meaning like, yeah, he's keeping true to his word. He's
Well,
technically doing a good thing, kind of trying to, get
it's
more
not. He's not a good guy, but I don't think he's so much of a bad guy. I think he especially doesn't view himself as a bad guy, and his collections of the stone is like a spiritual quest for him. He doesn't do a whole lot of killing himself, but he does like he's a bad guy.
I think the only murder he's committed on the screen
Was
was
Loki
Loki and his
or
daughter.
Vision?
Do you really consider Vision as a murder? He's not really a human. He's not really a living, breathing
He
creature.
let Vision die. Right, he watched him die the first time, just to
I'm
bring him
not
back.
saying that's not sadistic. I'm just saying, like, do you really want to consider him
So,
a living creature?
um,
Like, even if the snap did kill the other half of the Avengers instead of the half that the contracts are still on for, Vision would have been perfectly safe because he's not a living creature. He's completely AI. So do you really want to consider that
until
as a kill?
Infinity War, until Infinity War, where they figure out that Vision was saved by Shuri before she was done. Mm. Boom. Put that sauce on your taco. So to continue with Thanos, now that you've hit all my bullet points, um, I got nothing to talk about now. You smacked all my bullet points on the head.
Bah.
You
No,
one
but
shotted it like a hammer.
but no, he is trying to do the right thing, and I put quotations around it because he's trying to make sure there's enough resources for future generations. The thing is, I don't think he really took into consideration the fact that plants are considered living beings, and if you're wiping out half of all life, that's half of the resources getting depleted even further.
Yeah, well, I feel like with
He's on the
Endgame,
side of Lil
Thanos
Dicky on his song Earth.
might
But
realize that maybe using the Infinity Gauntlet was a mistake because now he's going to have everybody in the universe out,
yeah.
which is gonna bring some big baddies. Um, on top of that, he's gonna bring the fight to Earth. I think he's gonna come to Earth right as soon as Endgame starts. Like the Avengers are gonna go attack him, they're gonna lose, and then Thanos is like, "Well, I'm going to Earth and I'm gonna go destroy it now."
I'm going to destroy it. Just me. Fine.
Just
I'll do it
fine,
myself.
all alone. No Black Order. They're all dead. His Outriders are probably almost all depleted as well. It's just gonna be Thanos by himself, full armor, gauntlet, double-sided bladed windshield wiper, blade, whatever you want to call it.
Alright.
There we go. Um, but I hope you're excited for Thursday.
Yep, I'm excited for Thursday.
I definitely am myself. Right.
I'm going to release this tomorrow on New Comic
Oh,
Book Day. So Thursday
even
is tomorrow.
closer.
What?
Woo! Thursday is tomorrow. Thursday will be tomorrow. Yes, that is correct.
By the time this is posted, tomorrow will be when we're saying Endgame.
Oh, oh, oh! That's exciting. That's exciting. So, I think that's about all we have for us today. If you like the content that we are putting out, you can visit us at mb-3d.com/agent-blue.
You can find us on Instagram and Facebook, Agent Blue Podcast. Facebook is separate words. Instagram is all one word. If you would like to support us, you could go back to mp-3d.com/donate and pick the Agent Blue tab. Or you could go to patreon.com/mb3. There will be nothing in the doobly ho below on the website, so you don't really need to try to download anything unless you want to download the podcast itself. But that's all we got for you today. From us here at Agent Blue, peace.